Families in limbo why immigrants showing up to court in San Antonio are being detained, and why it's now affecting U.S. citizen spouses and their children. Voices from the Border, an immigration attorney, breaks down what's changing behind the scenes and what it means for due process. And Congressman Tony Gonzalez joins us to talk about pending border legislation, infrastructure for border bridges, and the political tension surrounding immigration images seen across the country. I'm Yami Virgin in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Immigration Crisis, the fight for the southern border. In courtrooms across the country, something troubling to some is happening. Immigrants who were told to show up for hearings, some married to U.S. citizens, some with children, are now being detained and sent to immigration holding facilities. That includes the minors. The images that have gripped the country from San Antonio as families are torn apart. What's behind the increase in detentions? On Thursday, the most in a single day, more than 2,200 detained. But first, the protest across the country, starting in LA and now in San Antonio, Texas, where Governor Abbott has deployed 2,000 National Guards members and over 170 DPS troopers to protect the city from peaceful demonstrations expected to start Tuesday night. The mayor of the city of San Antonio, Mayor Ron Nirenberg, and Police Chief William McManus address what they're planning on doing to make sure that San Antonio remains peaceful.
The San Antonio Police Department fully supports the right to peacefully demonstrate. We recognize how important it is to protect this fundamental freedom. Our top priority, however, is the safety of everyone involved, demonstrators, bystanders, and officers. We've established protocols to ensure demonstrations are managed safely and effectively. These plans allow for the free expression of First Amendment rights while reducing risks to public safety. If police intervention becomes necessary, it will be carried out according to department policy, with strong emphasis on de-escalation and maintaining order. As always, I'm in communication with our state and federal law enforcement partners to coordinate and prioritize public safety for the San Antonio community. We remain committed to keeping the public informed about our actions during these events. Transparency is essential to maintaining the trust and support that we've built in our community. Keeping San Antonio safe is a shared responsibility. I urge all of those who choose to demonstrate to do so peacefully. If you see something suspicious or dangerous behavior, call 911 immediately and move to a safe location.
I empathize with the serious fatigue that this federal administration is causing within our community, but I will reinforce the Chief's call to remain peaceful should you choose to demonstrate this weekend. I also want to offer my full faith and support to both the San Antonio Police Department and the greater San Antonio community to maintain peace and order. I'm confident that San Antonio knows how to do this right. Exercise your right to free speech, but I urge you to keep it lawful and peaceful. Disruption, destruction is never appropriate, nor will it be tolerated.
And again, what started all of this was Thursday. The most in a single day, 2,200 migrants arrested by ICE and ERO, which is Enforcement Removal Operations. They're all under the umbrella of Homeland Security. And what rights do these families actually have? We're going to go back and take a look at one of the stories filed by our colleague, Stephanie Esquivel.
In January, I told you of new orders under the Trump administration that allow ICE to detain people at immigration courthouses for deportation, which was previously not allowed. Now we're starting to see it happen right here in San Antonio, and immigration attorneys tell me a lot of people going through the immigration process are now afraid to show up to their court dates. Not showing up for those court dates can also get them deported.
Well, if I show up, I'm going to be detained. If I don't show up, I'm going to be deemed to be deportable.
While completely legal, St. Mary's University professor Jeff Adicott recognizes the recent arrests at the immigration courthouses in San Antonio could scare people from trying to pursue legal status.
ICE was not moving to dismiss because they were not interested in deporting my client anymore, but because they wanted to deport him faster.
Immigration attorney Marilyn Marino says one of her clients was deported last week following his hearing. Legally, people cannot be deported if they're already going through the deportation process with a judge. A final verdict needs to be reached before ICE can detain them. That's why Marino says ICE is dropping deportation cases altogether to speed up the process, which is what happened with her client.
They're moving to dismiss, and ICE is outside the courtroom in plain clothes, detaining them. So the whole scheme is to get these people out of deportation proceedings in front of the judge so they can be deported right away.
Adicott says in the past, judges issued removal orders, but many times those people went into hiding and were never actually deported. According to Adicott, this could be the Trump administration's effort to prevent that from happening.
They're simply setting up camps around the immigration judges. So when these individuals are deemed, that their claim is dismissed, well, they're deportable right there at that moment.
We speak now with immigration attorney Arinaldi Agosto, who's representing some of these families to explain what's happening and what people need to know if they're caught in the middle of these proceedings. Arinaldi Agosto, explain to us a little bit, number one, your client that you had yesterday, all the cases are going to be different. But I think people are under the impression that once they're arrested, that they're deported, when in fact, a lot of them end up getting some sort of a bond, correct?
They could be able to request a bond. It all depends on the specific situation of the person that is being detained.
Okay. Talk to us about your client yesterday when you were there.
Well, my client, we went to the court hearing normal, as everything was as normal as always. When we headed to the elevator, there were some people that went down with us. And when we got downstairs, there was a table with the ICE agents there asking for information. And they look at the system and say, you're being detained because your case being terminated or closed. On my specific case, my client, his case wasn't terminated, or dismissed or anything like that. So they look and they said that they have something else, a warrant, or they were looking for him for some other reason, and they ended up taking him anyway.
Okay. So the merits of this case, without giving the name, what were the merits?
Well, he came to the United States with a visa. He's married, a U.S. citizen, so he's applying for adjustment of status with the court. So we're in that process. So he has a really, fair case. It wasn't asylum as other cases, but he had a relief that we really truly believe was going to be able to obtain. Now, as he's been detained, what we're going to look forward is to request a bond to get him out of the detention center to work on the case. The worst case scenario will be that he will have to do the adjustment of status while staying in the detention center and with the judge over there.
So talk to me about the bonds. You had other clients that have been picked up. What are the bonds looking like, and what's that process like once they're picked up?
Well, it's all going to depend because there are several different situations. Each case is independent. So mostly for cases of people that have been here for over 3 years and they have a relief in place and they are doing, right, they should be able to obtain a bond. But it's case by case. It's going to depend on the flight risk they will possess and if there's any criminal case that they have. So if they have any criminal record, that could affect. At least on my specific case, my client didn't have any criminal record and he's been here since 2012. So we are looking forward to obtain a bond on this case.
There was another client that We did a town hall a while ago that had gotten picked up on a stop.
Correct.
What are the amounts looking like? Once you have that hearing, wherever they're at, what are the amounts that the judges are asking for bond?
The minimum amount is $1,500. So from there, it can be any amount set by the judge. It's usually between 5 to 10,000 what we've been seeing lately. But I recently had, like 2 weeks ago, a bond for 1,500. So that specific case that we're talking about, I think was 5,000. So it all varies depending on the specific situation of the person, and is in judge discretion.
What do you think's going on? I mean, we're hearing, I've heard from sources in DC, sources here, sources in the Valley, federal government. They're saying that the president wants numbers. What's in reality happening if they're picking up people, but yet they can still post bond to get out?
Well, that's one thing that, they've been telling, that they want to get numbers. So I don't really know exactly what's going on. But what I can tell you is that everything is totally different. The court used to be a safe place where people were going to have their case listened by a judge. There's a process in place. And now all of a sudden, people are just getting there and getting picked up by ICE, taking away their rights, their process. Even people that have filed for their asylum application have done everything correct. So they don't have any fault, or it was on them to let them be released when they came in. So, but there's been some decisions that some people should have not been released because, immigration is always changing. So now what they're saying is also, you should have been released. You got to come with me. So this is affecting especially the people that came in from 2023 to the present. So those are the people that are highly at risk. But
So you're talking about
it's hard.
Venezuelans, anybody that came in
Anybody.
2023 really has a risk of getting picked up.
Those are the priority cases, the ones that they are looking more for. But whenever they are going to court, they have, the government is connected, so they have a list of all the people. They know what they are doing for, what they are there for, their history. They have any criminal case, so they are just getting people. Not by getting picked by ICE, it doesn't mean they are going to be right away deported. There's a lot of people that have, are in the process of expedite removal that could be deported, but not everyone. So it's a case by case. That's what, when we were talking, I was saying, it's really hard to say something in general. But what I can tell is it doesn't matter what the situation is. You got to consult an attorney, go to the office, talk about it. And there are several ways to help people with this.
What did you see today? How emotional is it there today? There's video out there of a woman, and I was told by sources ended up in a scuffle with the agents. What was going on? What was she screaming?
Well, she was screaming like she was detained. As I could see in the video, she was detained after getting out in the parking lot of the courthouse. So, and she was screaming like, her kids were at school, my kids are at school, so stuff like that. So, because you don't have, so people are going to their court as they are supposed, following the rules, they're following the process, but they are just getting there, but they're being picked up by ICE, so they're not expecting to live, with ICE. So there's even cars there that been abandoned because they took the people and the owner of those cars. So it's been complicated.
Okay. What do you tell people? What would you recommend to people, since you can't give one answer to everybody? What are you recommending in general to people that may see this?
Well, there's things that can be done because there's a way to get the hearings by video conference. So there's a process to do that. So if people go to an attorney office and with enough time, we can file a motion to do that. So we don't have to go straight in person to the court. There's other ways where we can file all the documentation needed on paper, and we can ask for the final hearing to be set without going to a hearing, because you can do everything in written. So there are several options that can be done, but the main thing that people need to do is to look for an attorney, get an appointment, get a consultation, ask everything with time. These times are not now for people to use notaries or form fillers or people that they cannot represent them in court. So if anyone is paying those people are not going to be there. They cannot file certain things like attorneys can. So the most important thing is to consult with the attorney as soon as possible. There's a lot of people trying to help everyone now, but we got to act promptly.
This week, we're also joined by Congressman Tony Gonzalez, a Republican whose district runs from San Antonio west to Uvalde, all the way across to Del Rio, and then over to El Paso. As the representative for the 23rd Congressional District, he's pushing for policies that will help the district, which includes 800 miles of the southern border. We spoke with him about what's being done in D.C. to support border communities, expand commercial bridges, and manage the chaos at the ports of entry. And of course, we asked him also to respond to some of the shocking images circulating around the country that show how immigration enforcement is playing out on the ground. Congressman Tony Gonzalez, thank you for joining us. And the first question we had is about this bill that you are trying to sponsor and push through to help the border crossing, specifically when we're talking about business and commerce.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about introducing this bill that's going to modernize our ports of entry. It's very key. Mexico is Texas's #1 trading partner, and we need to make sure that legal trade and commerce thrives and is successful. I have many ports of entry in my district, from El Paso to Presidio to Del Rio to Eagle Pass, that impact not only Texas but all throughout the United States. So it's very important that we modernize these bridges, these ports of entries, to make sure that we streamline the legal traffic that is coming through the United States.
What exactly are you planning on doing, or what is the proposal?
Yeah, the idea is to cut out the bureaucracy in Washington, and instead of having to go through the administration for everything, regardless of who's in the administration, is that Congress leads, and Congress is the one that allows some of these permits to take place. So I'm working with Senator Cruz on this piece of legislation. We introduced this together. He's working in the Senate, I'm working in the House, and we're working together to make sure that we get it over the finish line.
What does it mean right now? I mean, everybody's seeing what's happening with the borders, with immigration, but commerce is something separate. And then we have the tariffs. How important is the fact that that business needs to keep flowing between the two countries?
You know, when we think about the border, we often just think about the security piece to it, and that is very important. And just in a very short period of time, President Trump has gotten the border under control. We've seen the numbers completely drop off, but we also have to think about the trade and commerce piece to it, and that's exactly what this bill does. The idea is to modernize bridges and ports of entry to ensure that legal trade and commerce that both the United States and Mexico rely on is streamlined, that it is operating, it is functioning, it is benefiting both Texas and Mexico.
And on that note, we are doing a story today regarding the 2 Chinese citizens that were stopped trying to come into the U.S. with pathogens, which would have created an agricultural terrorism attack if it was used the wrong way. What are you hearing about that?
This is so important. Why we have to know who's coming into our country, why, and they have to be inspected. You can't just allow people to walk over without knowing what their intentions are. And in this case, it's still early reporting, but in this case, two Chinese nationals had what appeared to be some bio fungus that on the surface you think, well, that isn't a big deal until it gets implemented into industry like a wheat industry that could wipe it out and cost American farmers billions of dollars. This is the level of detail that we got to get back to securing our borders and making sure we know the people that are coming into our country are not here to harm us or cause harm to our industries.
And how important are tools, technology like Aerostat? Right now, I know we're down a couple of them here at the border. Previous administration did not want to fund them again. Where are we at with Aerostat?
Yeah, I've worked really hard to add more Border Patrol agents to the equation. That's an important piece to it, but that's only one layer of the defense. And this is a layered defense, right? You need infrastructure, you need a wall, you need personnel, you need people, and you need technology. Aerostat, it plays a big part of that. You don't wait until the crisis is at your doorstep. You look ahead, you figure out, so that way you can identify what is happening. Right now, Aerostats aren't up to the speed where they need to be. And it has been a valuable tool. I think technology is a valuable force multiplier, and Aerostats play an important key to it. The sooner we can get those balloons back in the air, the better America will be.
And this week, and I know we're really limited on time today, but I do want to ask you, these last 2 weeks, we have seen a lot of movement, a lot of people, families being picked up at the courts, at the immigration courts. We have several cases in San Antonio where there are spouses of U.S. citizens who are legally going through the process and stop. What are you hearing in D.C. and what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, every case is different, and many times, you'll see images or you'll see parts of it, and you won't know the full story. And this is where what is important to me is that we have rule of law, and we know exactly who is coming to our country. If somebody has overstayed their visa, if they're here illegally, if they've broken laws, there have to be repercussions for that. I have in particular fought very hard to, one, identify how many convicted criminal illegal aliens are in our country. The number is over 600,000. Just recently, I had the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, testify before my committee. I asked her, look, the number was 662,300 last year, July of last year. What is that number today? Has that number increased? Has that number decreased? She says that number has increased. So this is where it's so important that ICE has all the support it needs to go out and apprehend these convicted criminal illegal aliens that are loose in our country to make sure our community is safe.
On that note, though, and again, I bring you back to the cases that they were spouses of U.S. citizen. One mother has 6 little girls at home. They were doing the right thing and following it. So if we still have 600,000 and more have gone up, why are we not focusing that? Because that was part of the promise to go after the criminals. You see where I'm at? I know you guys still have your eyes on the prize. Nobody wants criminals here killing, raping, doing anything else. So where's the focus right now to get back to that?
When there are over 600,000 convicted criminal illegal aliens loose in our country, everyone is less safe. And that's where the focus needs to be, is how do we find and apprehend these people? And these people aren't going to easily be given up. Like, you're going to actually have to put task forces together and go find them. Oftentimes PORTAC, which is the special operations group within Border Patrol, is leading a lot of that charge to find some of these bad actors. When I see cases of people that are going through the process, I question. I just want to know more details, and I want every government, any government should always be transparent. We should know the details. We should know the facts, and I look forward to that. Everyone should have their due process. This is America. Everyone should have their day in court, But once again, if somebody does not qualify for asylum, and this is what happened in the last administration, they let millions of people in, knowing full well 9 out of 10 of them were not going to qualify for asylum. They were fleeing economic persecution. They weren't fleeing other issues. So when that day in court happens and they do not qualify for asylum, our laws have to be implemented. Now, we can be compassionate with it. We need to find a way to balance it out. How are you compassionate and as well as enforcing the laws that are on the books?
Do we go back to the system is broken? Because if a spouse is able to request their spouse or sponsor them and it's taking forever, is the system broken?
I'd say a big part of why the system is broken is because the Biden administration used this one app, right? They circumvented the system. They basically allowed everyone to just come in without getting vetted, and they also gave false promises, thinking that you were going to come in and you were going to get work visas, knowing full well that you're not going to ultimately, when your day in court happened, you weren't going to qualify for asylum. And that is where we're at. We're starting to have these cases be read, be adjudicated. They're getting their day in court and they're not qualifying for asylum. But once again, every case is different. And I view every case, every person that is fleeing and coming to the United States deserves their day in court. And I look forward to that.
From the courtrooms of San Antonio to the halls of Congress and the U.S.-Mexico border, we'll continue following the people, policies, and politics shaping the border. Thank you for listening. I'm Yami Virgin reporting from San Antonio, Texas for Sinclair Broadcasting, where we are the eyes and ears of the southern border.